Parashat Bahaalotecha. So it's a packed parsha. We're going to talk on the last. Can you close the door?
Thank you.
We have the last part of the parsha, the famous story of Miriam and Aharon talking Lashon about Moshe. When you read the story, many things. תגידו שהיה צריך להיות מהצד השני. When you read the story, לא נורא. If you can talk somewhere else, you don't mind. ותדבר מרים ואהרון במשה, so Miriam and Aaron spoke with Moshe, על אודות האישה הכושית, on the Schwarze woman, אשר לקחת איתו, כי אישה חושית לקח. So the Torah described the Isha as Kushit, black woman, because it took a Kushit woman. So my daughter learned it in school, like, Abba? Moshe married a Kushit? קרה? And I'm like, no. So says Rashi, מה זה Kushit? מגיד שהכל מודים ביופייה. Everybody agreed she was so beautiful. למה? Because just like Kushi, everybody agreed that he's a Kushi. Also by her, everybody agreed that she's Kushit. So, okay, so we're talking about a beautiful woman, but the way described as Kushit, it seems to be way too far to describe a woman. Okay, by Sarah Imenu, יפת תואר, יפת תואר is a beautiful woman. Why do you describe it as Kushit? It seems to be very odd, which means very odd way to describe her. And if you want to say she was Kushit, okay, why do you need to re-put it? על עוד האישה הכושית לקח, כי אישה חושית לקח. So Rashi said that to repeat itself, she was Kushit by her appearance and Kushit by her maasim. Because a lot of times, sometimes people, boom, meaning...
activities.
No. I know, maasim tovim. מעשים טובים. למה? A lot of time, people who are beautiful, people do good מעשים טובים to be accepted among people, right? When you do good deeds, people appreciate you. A woman, she's beautiful, she doesn't need to do so because she already being accepted because of her beauty. So the chidush over here that she was both of them. But again, you describe both of these things as kushit. She was kushit in her appearance, kushit on maasim. It seems בכלל not shaykh information. Now, what was the Lashon Hara that Miriam and Aaron spoke with Moshe on the Isha kushit? So says she heard, we're going to see earlier in the parasha, it says that Eldad and Meidad, there were two guys who got nevuah. They got prophecy in the Machane. So wives of Moshe Rabbeinu said, wow, miskenim, nebach for them. Because now they're not going to be with their husbands. Because Moshe Rabbeinu had separated himself from his wife after talking to Hashem. So she separated herself from her. So when she heard that they're going to be Nevi'im, she said, wow, miskenim, no more husbands. Now, says Baryam, it's incorrect. We know that Hashem can talk to you, and one part of the requirement of the nevuah is to be with, you must be married. If you're not married, you cannot have prophecy. So how come Moshe Rabbeinu separate from his wife? Something doesn't make sense. I mean, you shouldn't separate from your wife. So the way they describe it, ויאמרו, הרק במשה דיבר השם, הלא גם בנו דיבר. That's the key word. Why do they need to say those words? Meaning, they're comparing themselves to Moshe Rabbeinu. So they're saying, Moshe Rabbeinu, Hashem spoke with him, and Hashem spoke with us also. But there is a big difference. You're not Moshe Rabbeinu. נכון? Why are they comparing them to Moshe Rabbeinu? They're not even to begin to be Moshe Rabbeinu. Then, the Pasuk respond, why is Moshe okay? והאיש משה ענב מאוד מכל האדם אשר על פני האדמה. Moshe is the most humble guy in earth. What that has to do with him separating with his wife? Being humble has nothing to do separate with your wife. Being a mensch maybe has to do. But why the description is being humble and therefore is separated. Now, we have Hashem continue and he said, ויאמר השם פתאום אל משה ואל אהרון ולמרים, צאו שלושתכם אל אוהל מועד. 3 of you should come to אוהל מועד. ויצאו שלושתם, 3 of them came out. If you call 3 people, what does that mean? That you need the 3. After the 3 came, Hashem stood inside and said, no, Aaron and Miriam, only you, come inside, I wanted to talk to you. So why did you call Moshe? Moshe, why did you call you? You know, you're calling Moshe Rabbeinu that he wasn't part of this conversation. So he called 3 of them, and then he said, no, only 2 of you come. Moshe is not coming. So Moshe, stay at home. Doesn't make sense. Weiter. The Gemara brings a special chidush that when Hashem didn't give compliment, Hashem didn't want Moshe Rabbeinu to listen because you don't give compliment of a person befanav. Since we spoke about Moshe Rabbeinu, so Hashem didn't want Moshe Rabbeinu to listen to the conversation. So therefore you see that you don't give compliment of a person befanav, אלא קצת befanav, but the rest you can say שלא befanav. Why here is a makor in this week Parashat that you don't give full compliment to a person? So we know that Hashem, by the way, didn't call Moshe because he didn't want him to hear. So there's still the first question valid, even though Hashem didn't want to tell them in front of him how special he is. But why did he call him to begin with? That's a previous question. And this child is, now why here we're learning that you're not supposed to give a compliment to a person in front of his face? The oilom, people think he shouldn't fly on himself, נכון? שלא ירגיש טוב על עצמו יותר מדי. But it's wrong. People should feel good about themselves. That's the foundation of growing in Torah. So how come we don't mention it? Then Hashem turned over to them. ויאמר שמעו נא דבריי. Please listen to my word. Why Hashem needs to say listen? Why is Hashem here talking to them? To give them criticism, נכון? Basically, you want to tell them, shut up. Don't talk about Moshe Rabbeinu. So why is it please? The word please does not apply over here. Shimuna. I think this is the only time in the Torah that we have the word shimuna. Please listen. There is nothing please to listen over here. Weiter. The Hashem approached him. How come? מדוע לא יראתם לדבר בעבדי במשה? Why you weren't afraid to talk בעבדי במשה? So Rashi explained what Hashem accusing him. How come you weren't afraid to talk about Moshe Rabbeinu? He said, didn't you know that Moshe Rabbeinu is I love him? And if I love him, the Lashon of Rashi, Moshe, if he said, היה לכם לומר, you should have said, אין המלך אוהבו בחינם. Hashem doesn't love him for no reason. If Hashem love him, it means what? That there is a reason to love him. And therefore, what he did should be right. But if you said that Hashem didn't know him, that's worse. נכון? Why would they say that Hashem didn't know Moshe Rabbeinu? So Hashem tell him, by the way, you should know he's my friend, so I know him. And don't say that I didn't know him, this is worse. They know Hashem. They know Hashem would know him. Why would Hashem give such an option for them that Hashem wouldn't know him? And weiter, their tiny was that he doesn't, whatever he did, it wasn't by Hashem's agreement, נכון? You can be the best friend of Hashem and you can do on the side things that you want. So why is Hashem telling him, by the way, he's my love? We know he loves you, but certain things he does that inappropriate. People are not black and white, you know? You can be big Talmid Chacham, you could do mistakes. So it's a big Talmid Chacham and he did mistakes. Weiter, then the Torah says, וענן שר מעל האוהל, והנה מרים מצורעת כשלג. Miriam receiving special gift of special punishment of tzarat. And ויפן אהרון למרים, Aaron look at Miriam, והנה מצורעת, and then she saw she's מצורעת. So ויאמר אהרון אל משה, now Aaron needs to beg Moshe, and he said, בי אדוני, אל נא תשת עלינו חטאת, אשר נועלנו ואשר חטאנו. Please don't feel any חטאת on us that we did wrong. Which means, they're asking Moshe, don't blame us for the חטאת. Who blamed them? Did Moshe ever complain at them? No. Who complained? Hashem. So why are they saying to Moshe, אל תשת עלינו חטאת? Should say to Hashem, אל תשת עלינו חטאת. Now this pasuk is saying it on slichot. Sfaradim, Ashkenazim. Why this pasuk that they said to Moshe Rabbeinu, that's what we are saying to Hashem, אל תשת עלינו חטאת. Then Aaron turns to Moshe, אל נא תהי כמת, אשר בצאתו מרחם אמו, ויאכל חצי בשרו. Don't let your sister be like a dead person, that her meat being decayed, or skin being decayed. which means the only reason Aaron asking Moshe to daven for his sister, because she shouldn't look like a dead person with tzarat. So without that, Moshe wants her to suffer? He says, tzarat, no problem, it's fine. You might going to be like that, so you know what, I'm going to daven for you. But the deeper shaila is, if Hashem said that that's a punishment for her, what do you need to daven for? If she needs this punishment, Hashem decided, well, what do you daven? Hashem said this is a good thing for her. What the tefillah b'chlal applies over here? Few more questions. What's the midah keneged midah tzarat? Miriam. Okay, she spoke about Moshe Rabbeinu, she received tzarat. What tzarat has to do with midah keneged midah? Then he said, ויאמר השם אל משה, והיה ירוק ירק בפניה. Hashem spit on her face, therefore she got a heat for 7 days. Hashem, who did you spit on? By the way, we know that one of the people who met b'mitat neshika with a kiss was Miriam. And so in one end, Hashem chtu, yorek alea, and the other end, she's the only person who died b'mitat neshika. Why? What's Hashem spitting? What did Hashem spit at her? If Hashem gives somebody punishment, he's spitting at them? It's interesting to see the definition. What? No, but why are we describing it as a yerika, okay? It's not yerika. Last question, the next week parasha, we're going to see that Meraglim, the parasha Shlach juxtaposed to Parashat Bahaalotecha, to show Meraglim didn't learn Musar from Miriam and Neviah. Why they didn't learn Musar from Miriam? Because Miriam and Neviah, she spoke Lashon Hara, she got tzarat, and also they got tzarat. So the shaila on them is, if you're going to tell me that they're going to speak about people, I can understand why they should learn from Miriam. But who did they speak Lashon Hara? On the land, נכון? Not people. So why would you learn from Miriam, who spoke about the greatest tzaddik, not to talk Lashon Hara on the land? Somebody talked Lashon Hara about Rabbi Yosef, and then he said, Eretz Israel, the taxi drivers, you cannot compare b'chlal. You say, you know what, when you step in Israel, it's very hard. That's not, you can learn from talking about Rabbi. What they have to learn from them. Now, the pasuk says next. He said that Kalev came until Yoshua. Yoshua's name was Hoshea, but Moshe Rabbeinu add the word Yud to Yoshua. Lama? Hashem Yoshiacha me'atzat hameraglim. Shaila is, what do you need tefillah for Hashem le'oshia otcha? To change his name. If you know that people are about to do something wrong, what do you need to tell yourself? I'm not going to do anything wrong. So what do you need to add a name? It says same thing by Kalev. Kalev went to pray בקברי אבות, נכון? Kalev went to בקברים of a father, שהשם יציל אותו. Again, if you know they're wrong, you don't need to daven about anything. There is no davening. If you know somebody doing wrong, what do you need to do? Don't do wrong. Right. What's it davening בכלל applies over here? Something we said, Ishmael, the following. So, obviously, the main topic over here is Lashon Hara. You see that great people, Moshe and Aaron, talking Lashon Hara about Moshe Rabbeinu. Aaron and Miriam talking Lashon Hara about Moshe Rabbeinu. Why are they talking Lashon Hara about Moshe Rabbeinu? What's going on? Who is the person who knew, we just learned in Yichud, that if you grew up with somebody, you don't treat them as Eshetish, right? You know them if they're close to you. Miriam, she raised Moshe Rabbeinu from day one. She knows Moshe every detail. Usually a sister knows a brother, and brother, no brother to the highest level in the world. Says Miriam to Aaron, I know Moshe. I raised him. I took care of him. I did everything for him. He has a personal issue. Why? The way he behaved, he's separate from his wife, we'll explain in a second, something wrong with him. How do you define wrong and right? So, I don't know if we spoke in the past already, that what's the issue of psychologists? 90% of going to psychologists is not effective, because the whole foundation of psychologists, it's somebody who's psycho means is not normal. So you need to define what's normal, and then away from that, it's not normal, above. That's parameter. Average psychologist has mental issues that he went to be a psychologist for, to take care of himself, and then so you're talking about people who have mental issues, and they define the normal, and based on that, now you're saying, Okay, so you're not normal compared to me. Because the psychologists, the not normal people, set the tune where it's normal means, and therefore the parameter, that's the biggest issue of psychology. So basically, they define you based on them that they are so wrong. If I'm not healthy, how can I compare you to me and treat you, assuming that I'm the normal, then I'm not normal? When people talk in Lashon Hara about somebody else, how come you can talk in Lashon Hara about somebody? Because you're comparing his behavior to your own behavior. Meaning, is that normal what he did? I'm looking at myself, I wouldn't do such a thing. נכון? So based on what I would do, and he did, is not normal. That's Lashon Hara, meaning he did something that doesn't make sense to do based on my parameter. There are two issues over here. Number one, many times you don't know the guy bichlal to compare him to yourself. If you want to compare him to you, you got to know him. But the hardest issue, you don't know yourself to compare him to yourself. When people talk in Lashon Hara, they don't know who they are to compare somebody else to them. So if you don't know who are you, and you don't know the guy, and you're comparing him to you, people telling me, Rabbi, you don't know me. I always said, the fact you don't know yourself doesn't mean I don't know you. Many people don't know themselves, but other people know them from outside. You can tell who's the people. So in order to prevent of taking Lashon Hara, in order to say the right thing, you need two components. You need to know who you are, and you need to know the other fellow on the other side. That was the foundation of the Lashon Hara of Miriam. She compared herself to Moshe Rabbeinu. I know Moshe Rabbeinu is greater than me, and I know who I am. Based on what I know I am, and based on what I know is Moshe Rabbeinu is wrong. What's the wrong part of Moshe Rabbeinu? What people who are trying to get attention, we just said, somebody beautiful, they get attention by their beauty. People who are not beauty, they get attention by certain acts, tzaddikim, the mafia, or their rabbanim, whatever it is. That's how you do good things. You get attention, you get recognition from others. But sometimes people do acts, they feel insecure about themselves, and in order to get attention, they post, we have the sickness of the TikTok and Instagram. What the kids today? I'm not up today. Today is TikTok for the kids? TikTok. They post, it was Snapchat, it was so they post stuff that's crazy. I mean, this guy showing himself naked. What's wrong with you? But why are they doing such action? When I do something extreme, I get attention. Extremeness always get attention. What's the difference between ga'ava and anava? What's ga'ava? Ga'ava, I need attention from the outside to who I am. So Moroccan guy will be angry here. How come you didn't give me an aliyah? למה לא נתתי לך עלייה? Okay, if you demand aliyah, people don't respect you, נכון? But I need to be recognized from others for who I am. So people do extreme actions to be recognized. People who are comfortable with who they are, they don't need to do anything extreme. I said my father-in-law, zichrono livracha, was so comfortable with who he was, he never spoke about anybody. Lashon Hara, he never spoke about anybody. He's comfortable, הכל בסדר. No need to talk, no need בכלל to say anything about anybody else. Says Miriam, Moshe Rabbeinu, my brother, is very extreme in his behavior. He married Isha Kushit. מה זה Kushit? So we ask, because we came late, we ask why we said Kushit. Say a beautiful woman. Why do you need to repeat it of Kushit? Kushit is something that stands out, נכון? Kushit among here, לא הרבה. But in Israel, for example, the regular people, among white people, Kushit's like it's something, everybody agrees this is Kushit. He married the most beautiful woman, Lama, because he needs attention. He wants to be recognized outside. I walk with the hottest woman on the street. Meaning, obviously, Moshe Rabbeinu is a tzaddik, but he said Miriam, Moshe Rabbeinu, his behavior seems to be very, very, very unhealthy. He married the most beautiful woman, that what everybody agreed, meaning he needs the recognition from others in order for him to act and to perform. If so, if anybody who's driven by extremeness does extreme actions. Why many times you see Baal Tshuva doing like something extreme action of tzaddikut? They want to be recognized. So she said, okay, now he's separate from his wife, but the motive to separate from his wife the motivation didn't come from a point of being a tzaddik, rather he has a hidden area of extremeness. He needs to get recognized by others. So therefore Miriam is blaming Moshe Rabbeinu. He said, look, I know he's a big tzaddik. I know the details of Moshe Rabbeinu. Since I know who is Moshe Rabbeinu, and I'm comparing him to me, but I know myself, and I know his level. So if I know myself, I know his level, I see something wrong, we got to take care of this, what's going on with it. Therefore, she's giving it over to Moshe, to Aaron HaKohen. Says the Torah, "Vaish Moshe anav meod mikol adam acher asher al pnei adama." What has to do with being humble after that? She said he's married to Cushit and he's separate from her. Somebody who's humble is not driven by extremeness. So why you married such a hot woman? זה מה שהיה בבאר. נכון? He went to the well, יתרו, היה, בסדר, happened to be a beautiful woman. השתבח שמו. He has no intention to get beautiful woman. He happened to have a beautiful woman. Which means,
It was Yitro's idea.
What?
It was
Yitro's idea to bring the
Yitro's
shidduch. Yeah, and he had no choice. The guy gave him bread. So he's not motivated. The Torah declared he was humble enough to tell you he's not motivated by extremeness. Which means, when he separated from his wife, is he motivated by extremenesses? No. He did it because it's the right thing. Whatever was the right thing. But the foundation for the Lashon Hara of Miriam was that he's driven by extremeness. The foundation for that is that she knows who is Moshe. The foundation for that is she knows who is herself. Said HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you have a mistake. You're comparing yourself to Moshe, nachon? You think you have the parameter to compare it. Hashem called three of them into the room. He said, no, only you two come, Moshe is not coming. What is Hashem declaring over here? You two are not like Moshe. You're two different animals. Which means you premise that you can compare yourself to Moshe and to know who is Moshe, wrong. So premise number one, wrong. If you think you know who is Moshe is similar to you, that's wrong. But premise number two, wrong. Says Hashem, you don't know who you are. Hashem approached to Miriam, he says, to Moshe, Shim'u na devarai. We ask, why is Hashem begging them to listen? If a principal calls a student, look, you did something wrong, please listen to me. You don't need to beg to listen to you when you're accusing somebody to do something wrong. Hashem wants Moshe and Miriam to understand what was the trigger, what was the driven to talk Lashon Hara. Hashem says to Miriam, you don't know Bechlal, you're comparing yourself to Moshe when you don't know who you are within yourself. That's Hashem needs to beg them. In order for people to admit their mistake, you need to beg. If you want to accuse somebody, you can tell them, okay, you're wrong, it's over, get a punishment. The purpose of Hashem over here is not to give the punishment and not to accuse. It's to wake up Miriam and Aaron and to tell them, you got to understand who you are. If you're not willing, I'm begging you to understand there is a major difference between you and Moshe. And Hashem bringing the whole differences that they weren't aware of. I'm not talking to you the same way I was talking with Moshe, which means Hashem making big differences. You, it's one thing, and Moshe, it's one thing. So where is the mistake of Miriam? She had a mistake of who she is, and mistake who is Moshe. What tzarat means? The haloch in tzarat, the tzarat metzora needs to go מחוץ למחנה, נכון? בדד ישב מחוץ למחנה משבו. When a person doesn't know who he is, you need a special quarantine. When you quarantine, what do? You start thinking about yourself. Which means the tzarat was not a punishment for Miriam. All this conversation between Hashem and Miriam and Aaron was a therapy session. You need to get them to understand that they don't know themselves. As soon as they realize they don't know themselves, now you got to go through a rehab. If you want to send somebody to rehab, if he doesn't know he needs to be in a rehab, he's not going to help you. Standing to 7 days quarantine of Metzorah, that's a rehab. Only after you know you need a rehab, after Hashem begged them, and they realize they need a rehab, then Hashem gave them the opportunity, okay, now go to rehab. When somebody is in rehab, one of the basic requirements, he has no cell phone, am I right? Yeah?
Yes.
No cell phone.
No.
Why? You can't call anybody, you can't talk, okay, get me out of here. You can't. What's the idea of rehab? You're in a place, if you made a decision and you agreed to be there, now you can't go back. Make it happen. Miriam, she is in a rehab, נכון? What's a rehab? צרת. Aaron HaKohen asked Moshe Rabbeinu to get her out of rehab. Is that a legit request? Can he said, she's metzorat, get her out of rehab? No. Lama, it's good for her. She needs this rehab. When Moshe was screaming to Hashem, El na refanala. So Vayitzak, why Moshe needs to scream Hashem to cure her? Because Moshe understands basically, says Aaron to him, she needs the rehab, but the problem is she's going to look like a dead person. So that's too much for her to go through. Because the rehab will be good, but she's going to come out a broken person. It's not right. So Moshe Rabbeinu is screaming to Hashem, Vayizak Moshe El Hashem, screaming. Meaning he understands that this is not a punishment. There is something above that needs to happen. Hashem telling him, I spit on her. What spitting means? Get the heck out of here. Sometimes you need to do it, when you sit with people. She thought she's close to me. She needs to understand that something is wrong with her. Minimum 7 days, she needs to stay away to understand who she is. After 7 days, Hashem said, Yalla, she can come back. Only after she finished the rehab, she can come back outside and to be back to the world. But Hashem says to Moshe, I can get her out of rehab, but what's the problem? I spit at her, she's still far away from me. She needs to finish the process of the rehab to understand who she is. And then after the spitting, how did Miriam die? Beneshika, and she became close to Hashem. So the requirement to be close to Hashem, it's only when you know who you are, then you can be close to Hashem. So many people learning Torah and doing mitzvot, they don't know who they are and they don't feel the closeness to Hashem. The worst part is they fool themselves they are close to Hashem. And they learn it with a lot of anxiety, they have a lot of pressure, and they want to be something that is not who they are. That really is not healthy for people. Only when after a person realizes who he is and he connects to himself, then he really can connect to Hashem. So Hashem said to Moshe Rabbeinu, you cannot stop the rehab in the middle. Give her the 7 days of rehab. After she completes the 7 days, she connects to herself, she knows who she is, then she can get out and start the new life. Which means, the only sort of Lashon Hara, it's not about fighting, obviously not to talk. It's fighting the comparison from the person to you, and furthermore, it's fighting to understand who you are. Many times, people said, Rabbi told me, Rabbi, I want to tell you something is not Lashon Hara. And then they said Lashon Hara. מה, אתה בסדר תגיד לי מה? הוא עושה בזה לשון הרע, מה עכשיו? נכון, זה כמה, נכון? למה? When people don't know who they are, they don't know how to translate things as bad and good. If you don't know yourself, you think that what he did, it's okay, it's not Lashon Hara. Once again, it's Lashon Hara. Why are you saying that? The only way to prevent talking Lashon Hara is to understand who you are, to connect to yourself. If you understand who you are, you can compare him to yourself, but you know who you are, and you can understand who the other person is. If you don't know who you are, there is no way for you to read the other person. And then how can you interpret an action of somebody else if you don't know who is the person? So steps 1, know yourself. Step 2, you can know him. And then you can understand what he did. Meraglim had to learn from Miriam HaNeviah not to talk Lashon Hara, meaning they need to understand from Miriam HaNeviah that's talking. Why did she talk Lashon Hara? She wasn't connected to herself. When the Nevi'im came to travel in Eretz Israel, they spoke Lashon Hara. What was the biggest issue of the Meraglim? The spies. Because when you go to Eretz Israel, the Lashon of the Torah, אלה שמות האנשים, ויעלו בנגב וזה... I cannot see it. So when the Meraglim went to Eretz Israel to give a report, the biggest issue is they don't know who they are. Well, how do we see? What was the solution for Yoshua and Caleb? For Yoshua and Caleb, if they knew that something is wrong, so what do you need to daven for? How do you define wrong and right? Bad and good. You can think something is wrong, and after being convinced, you understand that this wrong is right. נכון? The only way to prevent it was by Yoshua. He gave him Yud. He changed his name. What changing a name means? you understand? You get new identity. You have to connect to the new person within yourself. The old person that Yoshua had, Hoshea, the Hoshea Binun, the old person that Hoshea had, he didn't know himself. In order for him to know himself, what does he need to do? He needs to have another Yud. It's read to Sarai Menu, not for today, taken away from Sarai. The Caleb had to go to Hebron Ira Avot. In order to know yourself, what do you need to know? Go backwards, go in the past. If you go backwards, you know yourself. The only way to prevent yourself talking Lashon Hara, if you know it's Lashon Hara, if you don't know who you are, it's not going to help you. That's why the whole world is talking Lashon Hara. Why everybody talking Lashon Hara? You know it's Lashon Hara, how come you talk? Because you don't know yourself. The only prevention from Lashon Hara is to create much more awareness to who you are, that you can be away, you can avoid yourself from talking Lashon Hara. So the audio sort of, I think I covered all the questions, pretty much. Why we're learning here that we don't say Shivcho shel Adam befanav. You don't appraise a person in front of him. If I'm telling you, Kol Shivcho shel Adam, if I'm telling you who you are, it sounds good. What's the biggest issue? In order for you to know who you are, who are you? Who are you? Okay? Who are you?
Who you are.
Okay. No, אתה מדבר נכון, שכוח. Who you are. In order to know who you are, if somebody else explaining to you, you're not going to get it. You know, as Rabbi, sometimes you see them trying to explain to people, do the right thing, change. It doesn't work. The only time it works when it's coming from you. If you give compliment to somebody, you're hurting him. Because you defining who he is, not him himself. He needs the one to define himself. You can give him tools how to define himself. But you as a human being, when you do say, this is who you are, you're really ruining a guy by defining him. Because another element, right? You limited him to your definition. Maybe he's more than that. Say, he's the biggest tzaddik over here. Maybe he's genius also. Now he got a title of tzaddik, he's stuck. Saying Shivcho shel Adam, you gotta let go, let him define himself. He doesn't need you to define who he is. Number one, you're limited. Number two, is not coming from him. So our message of this week Parsha, number one, any needs to have extreme behavior, you need to know that it's coming because you don't know who yourself. And because you don't know yourself, you want to know yourself through the recognition of others. And that's very unhealthy. So if you see any behavior of you that you feel that you gotta be, we laugh from extreme people. But deep inside, extreme behavior, you can have the funniest people ever, but this extremeness and not regular behavior, don't want yourself, I wish I can be like him, I talk, I say whatever I want, and I don't. It's coming from something that you're not connected. A healthy, your job is, any motivation to be extreme, to be recognized, gotta work to be connected to yourself. And the most important, any concern of Lashon Hara, if you see you have a temptation Lashon Hara, gotta go back to yourself. Gotta go back to admire yourself. Gotta go back to appreciate yourself. Lashon Hara and Gava is the same thing. It's disconnected from himself. Anava is the opposite of Lashon Hara. When you are worth to yourself, then you don't need recognition. And then you don't compare others to you as because you know who you are. And you can know who they are, then you can prevent talking about anybody.